Welcome to the Life Self-Mastery Podcast, where we bring in entrepreneurs who have created online businesses and improved their lifestyles. Here's your host, Rohit Malhotra.
Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Life Self-Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Nischal Shetty, who's the founder of Crowdfire, which is a social media tool, and WazirX. WazirX is India's top-rated cryptocurrency exchange. They have built the world's first auto-matching P2P engine that helps the user with crypto conversion in a faster, cheaper, and safer manner. Nischal is a Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneur in 2014. Welcome to the show, Nischal.
Hey Rohit, thanks a lot for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, before the podcast, we were talking about your journey, and you possibly one of the few entrepreneurs who come into my podcast whom I personally know and met. So I was just wondering, how did your journey start into this crazy world of startups and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think you're also probably one of the few people I've met and I'm doing a podcast with. So it's very interesting. Good to have met you before getting on this show. So my journey, it started way back in, I think 2010, 2011 is when I started as an entrepreneur. But it was not like a one push into one fine day I wake up and I say I want to be an entrepreneur. I had a regular day job as a software engineer, which I was enjoying. But what I enjoyed the most was building products. So whenever I had free time during my weekends, I used to build something or the other. And now this was in, I think, early 2010 when Twitter had just launched their APIs. And they said, they sort of opened it up to the world and said that anyone can build anything on top of Twitter. And that I saw as an opportunity to build something, just to scratch my own itch. And I ended up building what became Crowdfire. The surprising thing was the moment I built it, and I built it because I needed something like Crowdfire. I wanted to grow on Twitter and I wanted to manage my Twitter account easily. And this Crowdfire helped me do that. Surprisingly, a lot of people wanted it. And by a lot, I mean over 20 million people have used Crowdfire now. Wow. So it seems like everyone wanted an easy tool to grow themselves on social media networks and also to manage them. So that's how my journey began. And I despite the early success of this product, surprisingly, I did not quit my job. I continued to work because what happened is I kept thinking that this may not really be a thing that will keep happening. I thought maybe the users won't come back tomorrow. And I started just building it out, making it better. But I never thought for a few months till the time when it started making me revenues, and the revenues shot up. And the demands from users shot up, and I realized, my weekends were not enough anymore. And that's when I quit. So it's been more of an organic way for me to become an entrepreneur, where I would say my audience pushed me to it rather than me pushing myself to it. That's how the journey began. And yeah, here I am after Crowdfire. I started WazirX. Now that's also again a very organic and interesting journey. So while this Twitter product was working well, one of the things that happened in the whole social media space was that a lot of companies, including Twitter, started changing their API terms and conditions, the APIs they provided to third-party products. And that's when I realized, that centralization is not really an ideal thing for the ecosystem around something. So, for example, Twitter started making changes which affected a lot of the third-party products that were built on Twitter in a negative way. But Twitter didn't care much, or the other products also, they don't care much, or maybe they can't help it because they have to focus on their own revenues and their own needs first before the ecosystem. This is where I realized that something like a decentralized system that I was sort of reading through at that time, but never been completely into it. So I knew there was something like decentralization and blockchain and stuff. but the power that it can have on the world in terms of, I would say, creating true ecosystem, like ecosystems where not just the core entity, but everyone around it also benefits. I think that's this at this point I realized the importance of this, and that's when I said, let's build something in the decentralized world rather than sticking to just a centralized ecosystem. So I moved on to building WazirX as a crypto exchange, and launched it. And surprisingly, it's working really well in India. We've got tens of thousands of people using it every day now, and we do over $35 million in trading every month on the product. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey where I just go where my audience wants me to go, I guess.
That's very interesting because you're one of the best product guys that I've seen because I'm a paid member of Crowdfire and I also use WazirX, which is there on my phone all the time. And you built one of the best B2C SaaS products out of India. Speaking of VC, a couple of years back, and you mentioned that you build a really kick-ass product. Did it really help you to come out of a startup like Burp, where you had a fellow alumni called Avlesh Singh, who runs a company called Web Engage. He came on episode number 62, and there are a lot of other interesting entrepreneurs who come out of Burp. So does it really help to be a part of a growth story of a company which went on to become a successful startup?
Yeah, I think definitely. See, the thing is, if you are part of a successful startup, right?
Right.
And success of a startup completely depends on the people behind it. It's very simple.
Right.
I mean, if the founders, the early employees, or anyone in a startup, if they're not passionate, if they're not talented, it's very, very hard to really make a startup successful or make it popular. Or anything. So I think Burp, my early days as an engineer there, definitely helped me because of the people around me. And Avlesh, like you mentioned, is an excellent entrepreneur today.
Right.
There's also Anand Jain, who he's the co-founder of CleverTap, which is yet another amazing product today. There's Deep Ubi, who's been building multiple stuff. He's in the US now.
Yes.
Again, an amazing, talented person and an entrepreneur. So I think, and these are just a few, by the way. There are quite a few more who are part of Burp who have gone on to build their own products. Either grown it or sold it off, or something or the other. But all the people I know were very entrepreneurial, and that sort of I would say gave me the initial push towards entrepreneurship and towards being better than what I was. Because when you work with smart people, you're automatically motivated to be up there with them, or probably learn from them. So
Correct. Yeah.
This definitely helped, and so that's been one part of it. I would say if somebody wants to eventually go to a startup, it's very rare where you just start on your own and things work out. Maximum people need guidance, they need training, they need to know how things happen behind the scene before they do it. So I would say joining a startup, especially in the early days or at times when it's rapidly scaling, that's a very good move if you eventually want to be an entrepreneur. Go and learn and see how things are done, so that you do not have to just relearn all of these things from your startup days from ground zero. If you can learn ABC, it's better to do that in a existing startup and then go on to build your own.
Interesting. Yeah. So I want to get back into a WazirX story. So Binance has recently, bought your company for an unannounced amount. But how did that happen, and why did you decide to sell the company?
Yeah, that's I think it's been, so this is not like let's go and sell, or for us or for them, let's go and buy kind of a story. I ever since I've been building a WazirX in India. So one of the things that if you're aware is India has had regulatory uncertainty in the country when it comes to crypto.
Okay.
And but the thing is, India is not the only country. There are many more countries where there's no certainty about crypto, and for a valid reason, it's very new.
Right.
Countries don't know what to do. Rather than anything, they don't know what to do. So that's the biggest problem today.
Right.
And I've never been in a space, and most of us have not been, where something in technology is so new that the entire ecosystem around is confused or baffled on how to handle it, be it
Right.
the authorities, be it your customers, everyone, because it's so new. This is like the early days of the internet, where there were no laws written, there was nothing which governed the internet. And eventually now you have all these data protection laws and stuff that's coming out. But early days of the internet, nothing existed. That's exactly what it is with crypto.
Right.
So when you're doing something like this, you need not just your product and talent and marketing, but you need a lot of insights from a regulatory point of view. You also need a lot of I would say resources in terms of capital, in terms of people, in terms of connections, to be able to build out this ecosystem, because every country today is in the process of building out the crypto ecosystem. It's not like a ready audience.
Right.
I mean, take for example this podcast. uh, we make we have this conversation, you put it out there, it automatically will reach people will find it, all of, because the infrastructure is built out.
Correct.
There's Google to search it out, there's someone to host it for you. But and there are people, everyone is on the internet already, your audience exists. But
Correct.
in crypto you have to build all of this stuff, by the way, because it's like it's at ground zero.
Right.
You don't have enough infrastructure, you don't have enough audiences. So as a company, there's only so much you can do, in the initial days. So I had a choice: do I raise traditional venture capital? But the problem is, even if I have the money, what about the expertise? What about the help I need around everything else? Versus, can you find a stronger, better partner who's been there, done that, seen it, and can help you go from 0 to 10 faster than anyone else? And that's where I saw Binance as being that partner, because they've achieved something which is phenomenal, unheard of anywhere, by the way. One of the fastest companies, I think, or the only company that reached $0 to $1 billion in revenue in just 2 years of starting up.
Wow.
And that's crazy, if you
Right.
think about it, it's unheard of.
Correct.
So I think I saw them as the ideal partner, so I reached out to them in the beginning. um, uh, but they were in a different building zone.
Right.
This was in 2018. um, so they said that right now they were tied up with their work, and they didn't want to explore or venture into other countries or other stuff. But in 2019, so they got back saying, hey, we remembered this conversation, and we think now is a good time to get into details and stuff. And that's how this whole thing happened. And I had reached out. This is more like, can we do some partnerships? Can you provide us with help and stuff? But eventually, when we started talking, we realized that both of us had the same kind of mission, and the same kind of vision on how to approach this problem of creating the crypto ecosystem, not just in India but globally, and how to make crypto accessible to everyone around the world. So when that happened, you just realize that missions align. So the best way to do is to get together rather than being on opposite sides of the table. And that's how this whole I would say the acquisition thing came about.
Correct. Correct. And you've been a vocal supporter of blockchain technology, but in layman terms, what would a blockchain technology mean? And how does do you think a blockchain technology would be available in most of banking transaction institutions?
See, so in terms of technology, if you look at blockchain, to make it very very simple, it's nothing but a distributed ledger. For
Right.
example, let's say you have a piece of paper with you, and I have a piece of paper with me, and you write the number 10 there. You then tell it to me, and then I write the number 10. I tell it to someone else, they write the number 10. and all of us have the same numbers eventually. And if you add a new number, or if I add a new number, I propagate the same to everyone else. And all of us can write these numbers, but if you were to write a number that the others don't agree with, so the majority has to agree with what you write. And if that happens, then we are all having the same data and the correct data. And this is all that blockchain is. It's just that this is all done in a more complicated way in software to ensure that everyone has the correct data, but no one has control. If you realize, you write it, but for me to write on my paper, it is on me. If I trust you, I will write it. Otherwise, I won't. Eventually, based on this whole system, the right information is surfaced out to everyone. Now, when it comes to this whole concept of blockchain, you'll realize that until today, what used to happen is if you wanted to build something, you would have to keep this data to yourself. You would be the one managing it. If I wanted to build something, I would keep the data to myself and manage it. There was never a way to work on publicly available data, which is what blockchain makes it possible, that this database is publicly available for anyone to write into, anyone to read from.
Right.
And that's where the whole innovation aspect starts. And that's where Bitcoin and cryptos came in, because until blockchain came into the system, you never had a way to transfer value from, let's say, you to me electronically or over the internet, by the way. If you look at the world before blockchain, you could definitely transfer money to me online, but you're not actually transferring it directly to me. You're transferring it via your bank account.
Correct.
So I think this innovation, where the way you can send a message to me directly today, if you wanted, you can send me a direct message from your PC to mine without any other third party. You can now today, because of blockchain, do the same in terms of value. You can send me value from your computer to my computer without any third party. And when you look at this and start thinking about the things that you can build, it's very hard to think about it, by the way, because this world never existed.
Right.
Until today, we could never send value to anyone anywhere in the world, but now you can. And so, the kind of applications that can come, it's not just finance or banking. It can happen in every industry out there in different ways. I'll give you a simple example in the financial world. Okay.
Right.
One of the things that is working really well today in crypto is it's sort of the whole crypto loans. People are ready to give crypto out for X percentage of interest rates. Okay. Now you think about the existing system in India, for example. We both know that the rate of interest for capital, it's probably 10 to 12% or 15%, right? 10 to 15% if you wanted to borrow money.
Right.
But in some countries, like say Japan, it's probably 1 or 2% rate of interest.
Correct.
Why is this disparity? Because your money today is held by geography. If you're in India, you only get access to capital in India.
Right.
If you're in Japan, you get access to capital in Japan.
Correct.
And there's a disparity in these capital because Japan has more money to give, India has less money to give. So the interest rates change.
Right.
Now, the moment this whole crypto comes in, it breaks these geographic barriers, because someone in the US can actually give you crypto right then and there, whenever, the moment they want to give it to you, without any barriers. So now think about what can happen to the capital markets in the future. Because someone sitting in the US, actually, if they keep the money in the bank, they'll get 1 or 2 or 3% rate of interest from their bank.
Correct.
But if they could lend that to someone in India, they could get 10 to 15%.
Correct.
Which means eventually the money supply in the world will ensure that the interest rates are the same throughout the globe. It might come down, it might go up. I don't know what that is, because it will depend on the global supply. But eventually, interest rates will be, I would say, the same globally.
Right.
So this is just one application. The reason why I'm not talking about, like, I don't want to pinpoint and say this app will work, or
Right.
this thing. I want to say about, in terms of a concept, the concept of capital today is very restrictive in terms of geographical boundaries.
Correct.
And I think these barriers will be broken when we see mass adoption of crypto. So just one example from my end, just to make your audience understand what are the possibilities of crypto.
Correct. And so I'm a big fan of value investing and Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, but Warren believes that Bitcoin is not an asset class, but you have well-known venture capitalists like Fred Wilson and Naval Ravikant from AngelList who believe that Bitcoin is a great investment. It's not a currency per se, but why is there differing inputs from banking industry and the financial guys versus technologists like Naval, Fred Wilson, and somebody like you? Do you think Bitcoin or cryptocurrency are currencies, or do you think it's an asset class?
So it's there's no one answer to the question of what these cryptos are, because
Right.
everyone uses it in different ways. Um, but there are two questions here, right? The first is why is there disparity? And that's a very good question, because one side you hear people saying this is the next big thing, this is innovative. The other side you hear such a big contrast saying this is a scam, this is a Ponzi,
Correct.
this is both of these parties are credible.
Right.
It's not like one is a credible person, the other is someone just on the street who's just shouting out loud. These are all credible names in the industry, in their own respective industries. The thing is, crypto is so innovative, and when you look at innovation right from even the internet, or even before the internet, way before, like I keep sharing about this, uh, be it uh, right from electricity, there were uh, uh, reports about electricity being dangerous for human beings because of the whole electrical wires that you have to lay, and that it can kill humans, and these were the kind of reports that were against electricity. Same with cars, your planes, everything. The
Right.
thing is, whenever there is disruption, and whenever there is something unimaginable that is put in front of people, we either adopt it, or we try to run away from it. And as humans, that's what it is. You either embrace it, or you just run away from it, because there's fear, instant fear of the unknown. And
Right.
that's what I'm seeing playing out right now. But eventually what happens is, everyone over a period of time, if it works in favor of the society, everyone tends to go towards it. You can look at internet. There'll be hundreds of cases of large business owners talking about internet being a hoax and not working, and eventually today they will definitely be on the internet, all of them.
Correct.
There's no one that the internet has spared. So that is exactly what is happening in the crypto world. And eventually what will happen is, everyone who's against it will be on the same side of the table and saying that this is definitely a helpful thing. But it will take time, because it's innovative, it's cutting edge, it's new, unknown. So yeah, that's the thing about why I think that's such a disparity. I don't think anyone is wrong. They're all playing to their whole, I would say, instincts right now. But
Right.
eventually, with the right information, everyone will come on the other side. And now the second, I think the second part of what we were discussing
Right.
is the cryptocurrency aspect. Is this a cryptocurrency? So there are different kinds of so the name cryptocurrency is very misleading, just FYI, because it says cryptocurrency, and then we suddenly want to know, is this a currency, is this something else? So crypto is divided basically into a currency, or it's a utility token, or it's a security. There might be a few more
Right.
definition this thing classifications, but these three. So when it comes to currency, I believe crypto first, whatever crypto wants to call itself a currency, I believe the value should not ideally change, because
Right.
if I transfer $1 to you, it should still be that $1, and that is hard to achieve in crypto, which are deflationary by nature. For example, Bitcoin. There are only 21 million Bitcoins in this world that will ever be created, and if you look at that, the value of Bitcoin will keep increasing, because the number of Bitcoins in the world is limited. So it's
Right.
very hard to see that being used as a currency. Having said that, again, like I said, I might believe that but I don't know. It might someday, maybe the whole concept of currencies might change, and this is how the world transacts. But I see Bitcoin as more of a store of value, like a gold.
Correct.
I see that as digital gold, where gold is limited in this world, or at least they say it's limited, and the value keeps increasing over time because demand increases and the supply is constant. So I see Bitcoin like that. But there are these tokens like stable coins, they call it, which is like it's backed by the dollar. For every dollar that you put in the bank, they issue one token online or in crypto. So those may definitely, they are currencies. You can look at them as currencies.
Right.
The third is utility, which is all these tokens that are needed to run those blockchains on which they're built on. Like Ethereum, you need Ether to run your applications on top of the Ethereum blockchain. So you will access that crypto so that you can run your applications. So that's a utility, like a classic case of a utility token.
Yeah.
So these are the different varieties, and there's always a debate on if Bitcoin should be a currency or should it be a digital asset. And I don't think there's any right answer, because simply because nobody owns it. That's the beauty of it. Nobody can define it and say, no, this is what it is. If there was a founder, maybe the founder defines it, people accept. But when there's a community, you cannot have a definite answer to this. It's just the way you see it. You can take it to be what it is. It's like that.
Got it. And interesting, you talk about as a digital asset. Do you think somebody should park the cryptocurrencies on a ledger or something like a Trezor, or do you think it's okay to keep that cryptocurrencies inside an exchange like which I've kept on WazirX?
See, there it depends. If let's take for example, you are not someone who trades often.
Right.
All right, you have bought it so that you can probably either sell it after a year or two, or maybe more, or
Right.
maybe you just want to keep it for as long as you can, and you think that you can keep it safe on your own,
Okay.
in your own ledger, and not lose it, and remember the seeds, or keep it in a very, very safe place where someone can't access it. Then I would see using your own ledger and device might be a good idea. But if you're someone who wants to trade regularly, or you're worried that you might lose the device, or because remember that in ledger and all, it's safe because it's just with you. But the downside is, if you lose it, there's no one who can help you
Correct.
recover it. So if you think that's risky to handle on your own, then you can keep it on any of the exchanges like WazirX or any of the wallets. So it's a more of a personal choice, whether
Okay.
you want to. There's a risk associated in every way of storage. Exchanges can get hacked. You can lose it on your own. Anything can happen.
Right.
But right now, what is happening is the ecosystem is such that matured exchanges, larger exchanges have these funds where they reserve in case of any incidents, so that they can compensate users. And as exchanges grow in size, their fund sizes grow. So sort of seems to be, and most of the exchanges are getting smarter as well. So I think it's a personal choice. I believe I wouldn't recommend any this or says that. You have to take the call on your own. But if it's a reputed exchange, chances are it's going to be safe most times.
Okay. And WazirX is world's first auto matching P2P engine. So what do you mean by that?
That's an interesting question. So I'm just figuring how do I explain it to your audience, but let's take this. So what is P2P? Peer-to-peer is where, if today you have, let's say, one Bitcoin and you want to sell it to me, all right, you can directly sell it to me, and I will transfer the money from my bank account directly to your bank account. So it's like I pay you money, you give me the Bitcoin, and we've done a transaction peer-to-peer directly between me and you. Now, what WazirX does is it facilitates this transaction, meaning we act as a platform where you can find each other. Me and you can find each other to do this transaction. Traditionally, peer-to-peer transactions used to happen, on the products where you have to put out a ad or a listing saying, hey, I'm Rohit. I want to sell one Bitcoin. Is anybody there? And similar to you, 10 other sellers will also put their listings, very similar to your Craigslist and all the other classified sites.
Right.
That was the traditional system. And then me as a buyer will come and I'll go through all these lists and I'll choose the right one and I'll contact you and then we do this transaction. All right.
Right.
So, but when we were building, we realized that while this is good, it's a very tedious, time-consuming process. It also has its own downsides to it. If you want to buy, if I want to buy 5 Bitcoin, I need to find the 5 people from those 200 or 300 listings and
Right.
communicate with all of them, and then get this deal done with each of them. And that's very time-consuming, tedious. When we wanted to build it, we wanted to make sure that our people can buy whatever amount they want within 5 minutes. So that was the mandate, internally, that can we make this P2P in 5 minutes? Because there's no way I can go through all these listings and decide for myself in 5 minutes and finish the transaction. So we looked at what is the best way possible. And we realized that the way existing exchanges worked in around the world is they have an order book where you put your bid saying, I'm selling my Bitcoin for $5 or $5,000 or $50,000, whatever that is. You put your bid, and there will be buyers who will say, I want to buy Bitcoin for X dollars. And if there is a match, then the transaction executes automatically on regular exchanges. In our case, all of this is the same in our P2P, except that when the match happens, the buyer is shown a bank account number where the buyer has to make the transfer.
Oh, interesting.
Once a buyer makes the transfer, we tell you to release the crypto, and the crypto goes to the buyer's WazirX account. And in this whole transaction, the buyer does not have to worry if who Rohit is, how Rohit is doing this, how much Rohit wants to sell. None of that. It's just an order book where the buyer fills a buy form and submits. Rohit fills a sell form and submits, and we do the rest. So all of the matching, all of the stuff is automatically done by WazirX. All that the buyer has to do is transfer the money to you. You then release the crypto to the buyer. In between, we also act as an escrow so that if the money reaches you, you do not run away with the crypto. So we hold the crypto, we lock the crypto when you are putting your crypto sell order. We keep it with ourselves so that if there is no dispute in between this transaction. So we act like the custodians in between during the transaction. But yeah, when you go and see the WazirX P2P product, you'll realize it looks like a traditional, exchange where it seems like there's no listing. It's just an order book, and you see on the left side you'll see all the buy orders, on the right you'll see all the sell orders, just the numbers, the amount, no humans name saying this guy is selling for this much and all that stuff.
Right.
So and this helped us, by the way. We've now reached where almost 90-95% of the P2P transactions happen under 5 minutes. Because it was just simple. You go and fill a buy or a sell form and get your work done. Why do you have to do all that stuff of going through listings? So we solved that for the people. And that made us go viral, by the way. So, talking about products, I think if you're going to build a product, first think about how do you make lives easier rather than anything else. If you can make things better, faster, or cheaper for people, I think that's the best way to build a product. The way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it's made. I think all of those are secondary. You can always improve that. The first thing is it should solve a problem in a better way. And it's simple, easier said than done, because it's very, very hard to find first what the problem is and then find a better solution. Because once you come across an existing solution, it's very hard to stop thinking of that solution and think of a better one.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And is WazirX the only P2P engine in the world, or are there other exchanges?
No one significant that I know of. People are trying to copy, but the level at which it's been about over I think 18-20 months since we've been building that. So we've gone a long way ahead in terms of this whole automated P2P matching. We're the biggest in the world today, and we're just in India. The idea is now, can we take the same experience to more countries? And which is where the Binance acquisition can help a lot.
Right. Interesting. Got it. And I recently read a tweet from Balaji Srinivasan, who's the ex-CTO of Coinbase, that as the decade ends, the biggest unicorn is not Uber, Airbnb, and Snap, but it's going to be Bitcoin because it was available to everybody. Uh, but there are a lot of currencies which have come up in last 10 years. And what are your thoughts on currencies being launched by Facebook, like Libra, and or how about other companies like Amazon and Walmart? If they decide to launch their own cryptocurrency, do you think that would dilute the value of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies?
No, I don't think so. See, the thing is, every crypto uh, will have its own unique use cases. It's very similar to how you have tons of websites today.
Right.
And unless they are direct competitors, they don't dilute each other. They add to the ecosystem. So if you look at the crypto ecosystem, there's a lot of opportunity today in terms of use case. So Libra, if you look at what Facebook said, their only motive was to make transfer of money easy between their own users, their own
Right.
user base. And that's a great use case, which today they are using traditional money, but it's so difficult for them because they have people from different countries. And rightly so, which is why today you don't have a one click button on Facebook to pay anyone anywhere in the world. You
Right.
can not do that. They couldn't do that. Why? It's not like, technology was not the only barrier. There's also regulatory barrier and stuff. Now, for the thing is, the technology barrier has been broken because of crypto and blockchain. And when that has been broken, now it's to be seen how each of these companies integrate this whole, transfer of value that can happen over the internet effectively into their own products. So Amazon could do it, Netflix could do it. I would say everyone will eventually do it. But the beauty is that large companies have to think a lot about the regulatory stuff around the world, whereas new and fast growing startups don't have to worry too much because they can experiment in the right countries where the situation is okay to try cryptos, or they could just build stuff for the decentralized world and try these things out and stay away from the financial systems of all of the countries, which is what is happening. So a lot of the innovation that is happening in crypto, they're not touching the financial systems of any of these countries, because if you look at crypto as a system, it's just technology in the end. There's
Correct.
nothing until you do not touch any of the money in any of the countries don't have a problem, because then it's just you doing something online with others.
Right.
And that's where maximum innovation is happening without touching the financial system. Eventually the regulators and all will realize the potential of crypto. They'll come up with the right kind of laws to ensure that none of the I would say negative activities are happening, like money laundering and stuff, but all the positives are taken care of and people can innovate. But it will take some time. Until then, I think all these I my bet is more on new age startups innovating faster than the existing giants around the world, because they have a lot of regulatory stuff to first navigate, I think. But
Got
it's a
it.
good thing. But it's a good thing because they have the resources to navigate this, the whole regulatory landscape. So it's a good thing for them to get in early and start talking to the regulators around, which is what Facebook is doing. I
Right.
definitely think something like Libra would be a good thing for the Facebook audience,
Right.
because then they can just transfer money easily, pay anyone anywhere. You do some job for someone on Facebook, and they can just immediately transfer money to you. Anything can happen there.
Right.
It'll be
Correct. Yeah, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg has been trying to get into the payments segment for a long time, but since Binance have recently bought you, what are you going to use the funding for? Are you going to add more currencies and more people into your team?
So I see it more as see, at first start thinking about it in how do you grow your product, how do you grow your audience. So
Right.
the biggest thing opportunity I see from this whole Binance acquisition is the opportunity to first increase the crypto ecosystem in India,
Right.
uh, which is where I will get all the expertise from them in how to build up the ecosystem. And the that's one part. The second is how do we also take this technology, the P2P technology, to more countries, where Binance, since it's available across the world, we can choose the right countries to launch first with the help of Binance, and solve the whole fiat to crypto conversion problem. Because right now, while in India people can buy within 5 minutes using P2P, there are a lot of countries where people are struggling. Like they're spending 6 hours, 12 hours, one day or more
Right.
to buy that first crypto. And not just time, they're also facing an issue of high premiums, meaning if the cost of Bitcoin, let's say, is $7,000,
Right.
in a lot of countries, it costs you $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 to buy it
Right.
because of the inefficiencies that exist in their markets. So I believe that we can take this P2P technology and introduce it to places where there are issues in banking and stuff, and bring down these prices as well as the time taken. So if we can do that, and I think Binance is the best partner to go ahead and try to solve this problem.
Got it. And it's easy to say that somebody could go back 10 years, they'll buy more of Bitcoin. But in a hypothetical situation, which crypto would you buy for the next 10 years? We're again speaking in 2030. Which crypto do you think I should buy, or some of the listeners should look into buying as an asset class? Do you have any suggestions on that?
That's it's very interesting. We can always hear this podcast in 2030 then.
Correct.
But see, I don't want to make any predictions because I simply don't want to give any financial advice.
Right.
But and so not from a monetary point of view, but I think it's obvious choice is Bitcoin.
Right.
Simply because it's the first ever crypto that was built, and it's something that does not really, though we have heard of Satoshi Nakamoto as the creator, it's not seen as Satoshi owning the whole Bitcoin ecosystem, because the ecosystem exists on its own.
Right.
So I like the fact that there is no one founder on whom this whole Bitcoin exists, depends on. It's the community. So I think, and something that is of the community, built by the community, it's very, very hard to displace that or to replace that or change it. So I think Bitcoin will stay, and 2030 will be a very, very interesting year. I'm pretty sure about that for Bitcoin.
Right.
Apart from that, I believe, because I'm now part of Binance, and I would not have been if I don't believe in it. But
Right.
Binance has BNB, which is a very good, I would say, utility token, looking at the way they're building out their ecosystem. So I think that's the other one. The third is, I have my own WazirX token, which is WRX, which we haven't yet launched. We are working on it, but we have distributed it to our early adopters. And the reason being, I've always believed myself personally that when you have the first set of users using your product, you should always try to reward them. And this was my small way of rewarding our early users, so that they're part of our I would say ecosystem, our community, and they participate in the success of this product eventually. So WRX is something that we are still working on, but I hope that by 2030, that's the next 10 years, I hope we would have really made it a very useful token within the WazirX ecosystem, at least.
Got it. And I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business tool?
Business tool. I think so. There are quite a few that I can't, I think if you take them away, I can't function without.
Right.
But I think, and a very interesting one right now is very hard to pinpoint one, but I think Slack is very, very important for us. Right. In terms of internal communication and stuff. And then I think Gmail is something that I use a lot for checking my email. So these two.
Got it. And if you could go back in time when you started building WazirX or even Crowdfire, what is the one thing you would have focused on or anything you would have done differently?
Done differently. So I think for WazirX, I've done a lot of things differently after learning Crowdfire. So going back to Crowdfire, I think what I would have done differently from my first startup day would be to focus on the all-round, I would say the health of your startup. What I mean by that is, as a first-time founder, I definitely played to my strength of product and tech, but though I don't think I ensured that I looked at the all-round development of the company, meaning in marketing, business development, everything around a company. What happens is founders just, if you are into product, you love product, you just go deep into product.
Right.
But then you forget the rest. It's like, if you're going to work out, and if you're going to work out only on your arms, your legs and your midsection is not going to be as strong as your arms. Right. So what you need to do is you need to have a full body workout, right? Okay. It's very, very similar with your startup. You cannot just do one part of it and say, I'll be successful. You have to work on every aspect of that. Yeah. And if you don't have the strengths, find the people who can work on the rest of the part. But I think an all-round development. So even if you're a team of 5 or 7 or 10, you need to ensure that every part of the startup needs are fulfilled in your team. So not have a one single track of just product or tech or marketing. That's not a recipe for success. You need all components. That's correct. What I would have done differently.
Yeah, I think one of the VCs once said that a lot of founders are product guys, but they don't worry too much about distribution. And once they learn the lesson, that's when you can build great viral products.
Exactly. And see, there is always an exception. By the way, there are always exceptions to these things. But I'm talking about 90-95% of the startups. They always the successful ones. They always focus on all-round aspect of their company, not just the product. And that's how you get success,
Correct. And do you have any favorite business book?
Favorite business book? So it's not. See, I've read quite a few business books, but I think more than The Godfather. It's not a business book, but the thing is, it was something that I read very early on in life, and whenever people ask me, I think that was the thing that shaped a lot of the way I do business. It teaches you a lot about ethics, about how to, deal with people, right. How to do the right thing, how to trust and not to trust people. Right. So I think I always saw that as a very important book in my formative years of becoming an entrepreneur. So that I see that as a business book.
So we'll put that in the show notes. And what is the best way people can reach out to you and sign up on WazirX?
So I'm always on Twitter. I mean, always, as in you can always reach out to me, and I try to reply to people. So my handle is Nischal Shetty, Nischal Shetty. Right. And for WazirX, you can just go to WazirX.com. That's WazirX.com and register yourself.
Correct. Right. Nischal, thank you so much for coming on to the show, and congrats once again for the sale to Binance, and you truly deserve it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Rohit, and thanks a lot for having me on the show. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Life Self-Mastery podcast, where we teach you how to start and grow your online business. For more information, visit Rohit's blog at www.lifeselfmastery.com.